My name is Nicole, and this is Brandon.
And how old are you, Brandon?
I am 10 years old, and I'm about to be 11 years old.
And what day is your birthday?
October the 7th.
How exciting.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell us your
Okay.
story?
Brandon's our first, and of course, new mom. Did everything the doctors told us to do. Read the books, searched for a pediatrician that I thought was going to be very supportive on breastfeeding. That was my main concern. Wanted some support with that. We went into the doctor, when we were supposed to, 2 months, 4 months. We would go, they would say, these are the shots that your child needs to get, this visit. And so I was like, okay, didn't do any research, trusted the doctor. Early on, he started having some skin problems. He would have eczema. He would have chronic diarrhea, constipation. It would fluctuate between the two. Every time I would ask the doctor about it, she would say, oh, it's normal. All babies have eczema. She would give us steroid cream to put on the eczema. She would give us shampoo, adult strength medicated shampoo to put on his head. Said it was all totally normal. When he got to 12 months, he had, luckily he didn't have the MMR at 12 months. He had everything else though at 12 months. So we had that. At 15 months, he had the MMR. After that, he stopped talking. He had been talking perfectly fine for a 12-month-old, 15-month-old. He had been saying a few words, mama, dada, puppy, things like that. Probably had about 10-word vocabulary at that point. At 15 months, he had the MMR. After that, all words were gone. His look in his eyes kind of went blank. He was not playing with his toys, the way that he should have. He got to where he couldn't handle loud noises, crowds. We would meet up, play dates with, our local moms group, and he was pushing the chairs around the floor, and the other kids were playing, and he's pushing the chair around the floor, not wanting to participate with the other kids. We would do the little gym. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the little gym, but they do little gym classes. They get together and play and do things with them, and he did not want to play with the children, as they were doing their activities. He was on the other side of the room doing his own thing. He would get really easily frustrated with, like I said, with loud noises and crowds, and that happened pretty soon after the MMR. My mother was a teacher, and she started, showing some concern. She's like, I think he has autism. Hold on, sweetie. And you need to have him checked out. And I was like, he's fine. He's probably just being stubborn. He's a boy. I didn't have a boy before. I said I didn't know what I was doing. It's my first child, and I grew up with a sister, so I said I don't know what boys are all about. So I just assumed he was being stubborn, as did his dad, and so we said, well, we'll give him some time, kind of see what happens, and let me think timeline. So yeah, my mother kept saying, I think there's something wrong. So at 18 months, we started the process of early intervention. If they're under 3 years old, you contact early intervention, and they give you therapy and things like that if they need it. So they did the evaluation. They did not give him an autism diagnosis at the time. They said speech delay, receptive cognitive delay, expressive delay, various things like that, but not an actual autism diagnosis. So we started, I think it took about 2 months for the therapy to get lined up. So initially we started special instruction therapy, where they kind of teach them how to play. They basically just kind of show them how to play with puzzles, how to play with different toys. His first therapist, she said, I really think he needs some occupational therapy and some speech therapy, so we'll get him lined up with that as well. So we started that a few months later. So he was probably 2 before he started the speech and occupational therapy. So about that time is when I read Jenny McCarthy's first book, her Louder Than Words book, and I learned about Andy and started learning about biomedical things. And hold on, sit right here, baby. So I learned about that, and I read her book, and I said, my son doesn't have autism, but I said, I see some similarities. So I said, if that worked for her child, then maybe it'll help mine, So, of course, I talked to my doctor about it, and she said, there's no proof that vaccines, cause autism. There's no proof that diet changes help at all. So she was of no help whatsoever. So she... so basically at that point I was on my own. We had no doctors in this area that knew anything about it. The biggest help that I got was his allergy doctor. I said, I started looking into it, and I said, I think maybe he's got some food allergies. We started looking at some of the biomedical lab work that they do. And so I talked to his allergy doctor, and I said, would you help me research this? Would you help me look into the test? And he's like, well, I don't know anything about it, but he said, if we can find out some things from those tests, then we'll try that. So we got these tests back, and they were horrendous, and I had to do a lot of research on my own, trying to understand these tests, and it turned out he had a lot of food sensitivities. He had of course, a lot of gut problems, yeast bacterial problems in his gut. So we did a lot of biomedical treatment based on that lab work. And by the time that he was about to turn 3, a couple months before he turned 3 years old, he said his first words. He added 25 words to his vocabulary in 1 weekend. And we were like, where's this coming from?
What do you specifically put that down to?
I specifically put that down to doing the biomedical. We pulled gluten, dairy,
right, so
those things, diet changes.
Billy started speaking when we pulled the milk. The
We
milk
did,
was
yeah.
the key. Right.
We did one test that we did to see if gluten and casein affect their brain like an opiate drug.
Yeah.
And
Did you send that to England, or was that done over here?
No, it was done over here.
Okay.
It was called the gluten casein peptide test,
yeah,
is what they call it.
that.
Yeah. So his showed that dairy affects his brain like an opiate drug, and so so he accidentally got goldfish at church nursery one time, just a few months after we started.
Goldfish are the problem,
horrible.
the bane in every
Yes.
parent's life.
And he used to eat them all the time. Yogurt, cheese. He loved his dairy, and so a few months after we started the diet, he got goldfish, and for a whole entire day he was completely spaced out for 3 weeks.
So that's the gluten as well.
And for 3 weeks he was bouncing off the walls, could not sit still, could not focus.
So
thing.
how is he now?
Now he's great.
I mean, he seems great.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
he used to have tantrums, meltdowns when things wouldn't go his way. Now those are few and far between. It's usually we have more battles leading up to the full moon. Luckily, right now it seems to be doing well. It just depends. So there are certain things that he's working to understand when things can't go his way, or can't finish something. Maybe he can finish it later. That kinds of thing. So we've done a lot of therapy. We've done a lot of biomedical stuff.
So do you go to school?
Uh-huh.
And you enjoy it?
Yes, ma'am.
I do enjoy it.
And you've got some friends?
My school is called Co-op. And I just got a new friend at baseball. His name is Cameron.
We have a lot of local support around here with the autism community, the special needs community. So we have a lot of activities that they do. They do baseball. They do camp during the summer. It's a day camp, and they go all day, or they go for 4 hours a day for a week during the summer. So we have a lot of a lot of awesome support in this
So,
area.
but going forward, does he have a medical exemption? Is he?
He did when we were doing school. It was hard to get. Make yourself comfortable, why don't you? Don't put your feet on her, baby. That's not
okay.
very nice.
We're going to go and sign the bus in a minute, so
yes.
you want to put your shoes back
Yes.
on again. We're literally going to go and sign the bus.
Yes. The initial exemption that we worked to get, the pediatrician that we were with was, adamant that vaccines don't have anything to do with autism, and so she refused to help us. Luckily, be still, baby. Luckily, we found a doctor in Mississippi that understood what we were dealing with, and she worked to get us an exemption. The initial request that she sent in, it took us from July until April to get his exemption approved for his kindergarten year. Initially, she sent the request to the local health department, and the local health department doctor said that the doctor's concerns that she listed on the request were not valid, and that she needed to convince us to vaccinate him anyway. Now, he had everything up to that point, and his titers showed that he was immune to nearly everything that he needed anyway, so there was like one or two that he needed for kindergarten, and so she the doctor was like, this is crazy. The local health department doctor that does not know my child, knows nothing about his medical history, is trying to tell the doctor to convince us to give him more things that we don't know what it's going to do to him. The doctor sent the request again and said, this child cannot have, these shots. You are a wiggle worm today. So they ended up granting it, and I understand the process is a little different now than what it was when we went through that. But so luckily that worked out for us. Later on we found out that that he has the MTHFR mutation. I started talking to some of the moms in the area who have kids on the spectrum, and started learning about MTHFR after we lost our third child to late miscarriage, and found out I have it, and so I decided to test him as well. Turns out he's got it. So he's at about, from what I understand, I think he's at a 40% reduced ability to detox. So children with MTHFR should not have these vaccines anyway, and he had everything that he was supposed to have. We've got friends in this area that I know have it far worse than what we have had, so we've gotten lucky.